Paltrocast.
How is your day going aside from being on the road with, one of the biggest recording artists ever and a gig you've had on and off for what, 15 years?
Yeah. Yeah. It's going great. The only thing that's funny is like just getting used to lack of sleep or, sleeping in a hotel every night, different beds.
Right. When you first got the Alanis gig, did you know, hey, this is going to go on for years, or were you a fill-in?
No, I mean, I knew I had the job, but at that time she would tour maybe once every 4 years, not very often. And then since the pandemic, we've toured every year, every summer, which is kind
Right.
of great. It's never too long. It's like the
Well,
right amount of time.
but speaking of too long to be a spoiler, like the first night of the tour, I looked at the set list and it looked like it was 25 songs that you were doing. That's a long set. That's a lot of material.
It's a lot. It only feels like a lot when some of the places we're playing are these outdoor sheds and it's been so friggin' hot. So yeah, I don't know. Maybe it'll be good. I'm gonna lose a couple pounds like sweating so much, but
Unless the catering is really great. And I have the feeling that this is one of those tours where the catering's really good.
it's okay. Yeah, it's pretty good. How about you? How are you?
I'm nonstop but good. Credit, and I'll say this on the record. I think you were on episode 3 or 4 of my show. I had the All Drummer Show, which was you, Wolf, and Mark Stepro. And all of you were doing fantastic. It's not like my show is your career highlight.
No, it was.
Yeah, and I've gushed to you off air about your credits, and that when people do there's this player parentheses, and as the first 3 or 4 credits, you have had so many credits that Queens of the Stone Age wouldn't be in the first like 7 of those at this point in your career.
Yeah, I'm pretty damn lucky to keep getting to do this. And the older I get, the more aware of that I am for sure. You know.
But at the same time, I think that you're one of those people who's had very low key success in that you're not one of those guys that wears the t-shirts of the bands whose albums that he actually played on. So your Wikipedia is not always very correct or up to date. I don't think it's
Yeah.
listed any sessions from the last like 7 years.
Yeah, I think there was somebody was doing it and then I think they got bummed out at me or something. Just stopped. They're like, yeah, fuck this guy.
Yeah. So how do we find out what you played on? Is there an authoritative guide
Yeah,
that we have to ask a
there's
manager?
there's close like allmusic.com I think has a lot of the credits and I think there's another one called Jacksta. Yeah, I'm not good at the tooting my own horn kind of deal, you know.
Are
I'm
are
not
you
good.
still at the but you're still at the point where do you like go to CVS and you hear something go, "Oh, I played on that. Did I get paid for that?" Do you have those moments still?
All the time. It's really like anytime I'm in a store. And it was funny. I went into some restaurant and I was in the bathroom, or maybe it was at the airport yesterday, and I was like, "Oh, that's me playing." You know?
Yeah, and I think the average person doesn't realize that's you on Avril Lavigne, that's you on The Vines, that's you on an early OK Go album, et cetera, et cetera. So what I'm getting at is there isn't a full-on list of every session you've ever done. There is some mystery involved.
I mean, to a degree, but I think like all music has a lot of them,
Yep.
and Jacksta for sure. They're better. I know I need to figure out how to update all that stuff. And the big one actually was like a year ago, the Lizzo one, the About Damn Time.
You
Her,
played on that?
yeah.
Didn't know that.
And Juice, there was another one by her, Juice. And then I
Yeah.
played, she's got another record coming out, and hopefully the stuff I played on will make it. We'll see. But
Now, I knew that you could do funk, soul, and R&B. That Sheryl Crow record you did reminded me of the fact that you had your soul roots and all that. How did they know? How did Team Lizzo know? Okay, yeah, Victor can do that.
I'm not sure. Maybe from my Macy Gray days. I'm not sure, but it's funny. That's actually my favorite stuff. I was always into 70s funk and R&B and stuff like that. That's, wish where I wish I got to live most of the time. Funny enough.
Yeah, how did you get pegged as a hard rock guy? Was that Masters?
Probably, I was always kind of just go where the wind's gonna blow, right? And like when I was a kid, it's funny. I have a friend out here who's on this, Jason Orm, who plays guitar with Alanis, and we grew up in the, mostly in the suburbs, out in California, and like at that time when I was like 15 or 16, anybody that could play an instrument was playing heavy metal or punk, right? So you just had to do that stuff, even though that wasn't really what I was into. But it's like if you wanted to play with other people, you learned all those songs and you did it. And then, yeah, I've had a funny career in that way. And I think it just goes for anything, right? Once you play on one record, people think you're that guy. And I think I was just kind of lucky enough that, say for like the Avril Lavigne thing, then all of a sudden I'm playing on a bunch of pop stuff, and you do another thing and it goes another way. And
Yeah, the Avil stuff led to lyrics and some of that pop punk stuff too.
yeah, and it's cool. That's the thing I liked about, or like about being a session guy, is it's always different, you know. And even like the last year, I did the last two Brian Setzer records, and
I didn't know that either.
yeah, I'm really proud of those records. Those were really fun.
Well, okay, now that's a gig that fascinates me because I had the pleasure probably 6 months before COVID of seeing the Stray Cats play this tiny club show on Long Island. It was a promotional thing for Sirius XM. And watching Slim Jim up close, he usually has what, a snare, a cymbal, and a bass drum, and that's it. But
Yeah,
you never listen to that and go, "Oh, this is boring."
yeah.
He's able to do so much with so little. When you're playing with Brian Setzer, does he want the exact opposite of what he has with Slim Jim?
No, it was cool. When the two records I did, I wasn't given any direction. And the first one we did during COVID, where I just got sent him playing guitar and singing the songs, and it was just like, do your thing. Uh, and so there was no direction whatsoever. It was just like listen and play, and that kind of music, and it doesn't really require a lot of drums, right? It's like just holding down the fort, and it's pretty fun though. Those were really, really fun records.
Now you mentioned, that was lockdown era kind of stuff. And we,
Yeah.
we then saw drummers primarily become home studio based. And
Yeah.
then now we've seen everybody kind of go back to the studio, back to renting the space. Where are you at with all that? Are there three Victor kits? Like, here's the home studio one, here's the rehearsal space I rent, and then here's the random London kit that I have?
Yeah, I have a cartage guy, this guy, John Reznick, who runs Angel City Drums, who's like the guy in Los Angeles. And I have a set of stuff that when I go to a studio, he brings that kit. And then otherwise, and a lot more these days, I do stuff at home, which I thought was a pretty great thing about the pandemic, was that, for years I had studios. I think you went to one of my old studios, maybe that I was
Yes.
hearing.
The
But
one with Dave Kushner was
yeah,
briefly that one.
yeah, yeah. So I always had all of these great places, but I always had an engineer who could engineer the stuff. And so then over the pandemic, I was like, oh crap, I got to figure this out. Watched a bunch of YouTube videos and was, lucky enough to have a lot of equipment that I could bring home. And now I really love it. I love engineering and I love that whole thing. And that's like another area to just keep learning more stuff and try to get better at. And so I would say there's like, it's 50-50 at this point. Like there's a lot of stuff I'll do. I've done some of the Lizzo stuff from home, uh,
Oh,
and the Brian Setzer records I did at home. Uh, and still like people will send me stuff. And actually I brought out a recording rig on the road to set up, and I have a recording kit that I will set up when we have dressing rooms that are big enough that I could get my own space and set up and record.
well, to keep endlessly complimenting you and endlessly throwing credits and job titles at you, you started off as a front man, as a singer who also produced and wrote for other artists. And again, some of that's not super documented. Are you doing much singing or songwriting these days?
No, I mean I will write songs and do stuff like that, but I can't stand my own voice, so I stopped that a long time ago.
Oh, okay. Because I was wondering if when somebody was hiring you, if they knew they had a singing drummer, you kind of hid that.
Yeah, I don't. I definitely wouldn't advertise myself as that. It's like a lot of things. Like I used to play a lot of guitar, a lot more guitar, and I was playing on records. And then as I got more into the session world, and I met real guitar players, it's like, oh man, I have no business doing this. So I'm gonna stay in my lane a little bit more.
So to rudely project on you, it sounds like just a career of accidents
Yeah.
where you didn't start out going, "Hey, I'm going to be a touring drummer." You started out to be more of a session drummer. Do I have that wrong? Because I didn't know what
Kind of backwards.
the
It was more starting out. I wanted to be in a band, was in a couple bands, you get signed, you go on tour, and that would fall apart. And then I kind of found myself in the session world. And generally you're kind of either or, right? You're either a touring guy or a record guy. And I've kind of been pretty fortunate to be able to go back and forth. So
Got
yeah.
it. So you went from touring band guy to session guy, back to touring guy, and then of course COVID forced session guy, but then back to touring guy. So it's back
Yeah,
and
I mean, I wouldn't even say tour. I like these days, it's pretty, I would say more session guy than touring guy. And touring, really, I tour with Alanis, and we'll go out over the summer, and then I spend the rest of the year at home making records or doing movie soundtracks and stuff like that. You
but
know.
the kudos to rudely interrupt you here is go with the fact that a lot of the times the session person's not the touring person because they're not a good hang.
I mean, I wouldn't say that. I would say you just want to be home to keep getting records, right? You want to keep working. Uh, and I think, I don't know, I found in if you're trying to have a career in music, like it's too hard to say, oh, I'm going to do this or that. I felt like I just got to go where the work is pointing me.
Got it. So the last time I had the pleasure of speaking with you, you said that you got to play on a Paul Stanley record, the infamous Live to Win, and that he was a pleasure to work with and that he was actually receptive to you mentioning how he was an early influence on you. And that's a really good thing to hear. Now, when I speak to people who are above the age of, let's say, 45, odds are Kiss, Van Halen, both of those bands were why they started playing music. Now, in your case, being a long-term LA guy, were there ever any flirtations of, hey, I almost had the David Lee Roth gig or a David Lee Roth session? Because I've heard so many drummers talk about, yeah, I was asked about that one.
Yeah, I don't recall ever being asked for that. Though I will say I just got to make my one of my dream records, like where I walked out and I was like, if I get hit by a bus, I'm good. I got to play on the new Doobie Brothers record with Michael McDonald, and I'm over the moon about it. Like he was so amazing to work with. And I literally I called the producer and I thanked him. And I was like, yeah, if I get in a car accident on the way home and I die, you can tell people I died very happy. Like I feel like
Did,
I got to do everything I wanted to do.
did that one come up because you said Van Halen leads you to Ted Templeman, which then leads you back
Yes,
to Indrizzo?
exactly. Yeah, I don't think I ever like was close. And it's funny, Van Halen wasn't really, it's probably sacrilegious to say, but I never got that into them.
Really?
Yeah,
That's You're the only drummer I've ever
I
heard
know.
that case
I
because I
know.
think Josh Freese would give up every gig on the planet to.
It's sacrilegious. I am fully aware of that. I just outed myself.
So you were way into Kiss, or did you just tell Paul Stanley that?
No, no, no. I was, but it was funny by junior high school, like, my true love was still like Stevie Wonder and other, I was like into other things, but it was like, yeah, Kiss was like a weird anomaly for me. Like I just loved, I think, I got into them at third grade and it was just, they were like superheroes. They were like this whole other thing that, you know, I don't know. And my drum set right now that I'm using on tour, it's like I'm still trying to emulate Peter Criss, which is, I have concert toms and more toms than I've ever used. And there's something that, is just marked on me by them, for better or for worse.
For better and for worse, both. I've had the pleasure, not that you asked, of running into Peter Chris randomly like 3 times in a 5-month period around here. And 2 of them, he performed at the Cutting Room. Did you ever play there in New York?
I didn't, but I know of it.
It is a bizarre place where really famous people play for 60 people. And
Right.
you don't hear about it. And so Peter Chris does this thing when he performs live where he won't go behind the kit, but he's playing these drumstick things to keep rhythm and he's hitting them. And I don't know what that is. Have you ever gone through a phase where you went, what do I do with my hands? I have to distract with drumsticks?
I mean, I'm doing it right now. I do understand that. I do understand. And I have to say, I was pretty bummed when I read the Peter book, actually. I gotta say. I was
It,
pretty bummed.
it,
Only that I felt like he didn't hold himself accountable for maybe mistakes he made in his life.
Totally. I mean,
Yeah.
if I can give an unpopular opinion here. Now, I've interviewed Gene a few times, Paul, and Ace. Every time Peter gets blocked by his wonderful wife. And basically what you kind of learn is it's like professional wrestling where you learn that the bad guys in real life are the nicest, most accommodating people as long as there's not a camera there. Gene Simmons is like that.
Right.
And Ace, if you go up to Ace and go, your guitar playing changed my life, he'll go, do you know how many times I've heard that? Go away. So it's kind of weird where the good guys are really the bad guys are the good guys.
Yeah.
Or do you disagree right there?
No, I think that's probably right. And, it was cool when I got to hang out with Paul. He told me he was so open about telling me stories about his time with the original lineup. And I was grilling him, of course, and it was interesting to get his perspective on it. And then reading Peter's book, you could kind of piece things together and made me a little sad.
Who played on more Kiss tracks, Peter or Anton Fig?
I mean, I think Peter probably did, but until you get to that certain point, then you're just like, yeah, you know, drugs
There
are
you
bad.
go. Well, back to you and the endless compliments here. Your original roots, which Wikipedia backs up, peg you to Freeport, Long Island, New York. Did How long did you spend there? Like till you were 7 or 8 or something like that?
You something like that, yeah. I it's funny because I was always saying 10, but I think it was like 8, and then whenever, yeah, maybe somewhere around there, and then we moved to Los Angeles. And I was excited to move to Los Angeles because of like reading records and seeing where records, it seemed like most records were recorded in LA.
Yeah, but Freeport makes you technically a Long Islander, which says to me it's a travesty that Victor Indrizzo is not in the Long Island Music Hall of Fame.
I know, what the hell? Come on.
I mean, you, Guy Lombardo, I think sometimes Flavor Flav tells people he's from Freeport. Lou Reed,
Yeah,
I think Freeport kind of changed the world.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think I haven't been vocal enough about my Freeport status.
Are there any actual Hall of Fames that you're in, though? I know that's a random question,
I
but
mean, not that I know of. I don't know. I don't think so. Only in my mind.
only in my mind, because again, the compliments keep coming here. So 3 quick questions, and then I let you go. First one related to the Freeport thing. Playing Jones Beach, that's basically like 3 miles from where you technically were born. Did you actually go to Jones Beach as a kid?
I did, and it's funny. That is when I've gotten to play there. That is very, very special for me because there's just certain things you think of, like getting to play Radio City Music Hall. Got to play Madison Square Garden once, and like those things when you're a kid, like that's what you dream of. And yeah, for me, I don't know. There's like a different kind of East Coast thing in people that I don't know what it is. But I've always related to that, and it will always be part of me.
Punctuality, that could be
Punctuality, yeah,
saying you're going to do something and actually doing it, which
absolutely.
there you go. Next question right here. Half of ACDC was in Alanis's band. Have you already started learning the ACDC catalog?
I wish. What a great gig. And I know Matt Laug is such a great drummer, and he's like the perfect guy for that gig. I was so happy when I heard that he got that. I can't think of anybody better for that.
I had a theory that you were the backup because there's no way with insurance policies that there's not a backup for all of your favorite
I
bands
know.
in the park.
I think I'm too tall and not enough hair. So
I think too handsome and too good for the gig. How's that? And the last one is, what's the last concert that you went to as a fan, not because you were going to get on stage or anything like that?
Oh gosh, that's I mean, the ones that stick out is I went to see Ray Charles before he died at the Hollywood Bowl. I really am a Ray Charles nut. Uh, and I got to see him a couple times, and I even got to meet him briefly once when I was like 18. He was playing some benefit, and we went inside and we were like going, he's not going to stay here all day. It was like a million artists. So we ran around the back, and sure enough, he was walking out, and got to walk up to him. And I told him that I loved him. And he gave me a little postcard because he didn't sign autographs. And it was that I will never forget.
So if that was your last concert and he passed away at least 10 years ago, I'm saying 10 to 15 ago, Victor does not go to concerts.
Not really. It's funny. And I was talking about this, like to go to concerts, like when I go, I just want to play. And it was that way as a kid too. I would go to a concert, and the whole time I just be like, man, I want to be there. I want to do that. And it would make it hard for me to actually enjoy the show.
So it sounds like you need an excuse for a Camp Freddy of your own.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That
exactly.
because that just reads to me like rock and roll summer camp where they go, who do I want to meet? Yeah, well, hey, do you want to do this? You'll come up 10 grand for 2 songs. Okay, so
Yeah.
looking forward to your eventual Camp Freddy. But
Yeah.
hey, Victor, thank you for your time. Really looking forward to what's to come. And I can't wait to speak to you in 2 more years and find out you played on 15 more records than I've heard a
I
thousand
hope
times.
so. I hope so.
Paltrocast.